Soldiers of the Wagner mercenary group who were detained after participating in the recent mutiny have been released. Remember, the Wagner group led by their chief Yevgeny Prigozhin revolted against Russian President Vladimir Putin. Some of the troops were captured by Russian forces, while some turned themselves in after the botched mutiny. Now they have been freed. They've also been cleared by the Russian Defense Ministry to go fight in Ukraine if they choose. Meanwhile, Putin was all praises for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He called India a big friend of Russia. He also admired the Make in India initiative. Putin added that Russia will work towards emulating the Make in India program. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for the expansion of the United Nations Security Council. Lavrov said that this would give Asian, African and Latin American countries more representation. He added, a majority of the world does not live according to Western rules. Currently, the UN Security Council has 5 permanent members. These are China, France, Russia, the UK and the US. Former US Vice President Mike Pence met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv late on Thursday. Pence also visited villages near Ukraine's capital that have been destroyed by Russian shelling. He's now the first Republican candidate to meet Zelensky in the run-up to the 2024 presidential election. Pence is up against his former boss, ex-US President Donald Trump, for the Republican nomination. French President Emmanuel Macron attended the EU Leaders Summit in Belgium's capital, Brussels. He was joined by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and other EU leaders. The summit was chaired to discuss the EU's relations with China. However, Macron had to leave the summit early to hold a meeting on the ongoing riots in his country. Major cities in France are witnessing rioting. Clashes between protesters and the French police have been ongoing for 3 consecutive nights. This is over the fatal shooting of a teenager by a police officer. Demonstrators torched cars and flung fireworks at the police. Around 900 people have been detained so far. Fresh clashes erupted in India's northeastern state of Manipur. At least 2 civilians were killed after gunmen opened fire on a police convoy. After that, protests erupted as locals demanded justice for the victims. Manipur has been witnessing unrest since the 3rd of May. The International Monetary Fund has given an initial nod for a $3 billion loan for Pakistan. The much-awaited decision comes as the South Asian nation is on the brink of defaulting on its previous loans. However, a final approval is yet to be given by the IMF board. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan slammed Sweden for allowing the burning of the Quran. On Thursday, people desecrated and burnt the Islamic holy book outside a mosque in Sweden's capital, Stockholm. This was after the Swedish government allowed the act under the freedom of speech. Erdogan said that his government would take strong action against Sweden. He said, and I'm quoting, "We will teach the arrogant Western people a lesson." The Quran burning in Sweden has drawn a backlash from other Islamic countries as well. Protesters in Iraq gathered outside the Swedish embassy in the capital, Baghdad. The demonstrators chanted, "Yes to the Quran." Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he has dropped a contentious part of his government's judicial overhaul plan. Netanyahu said he was no longer seeking authority for the parliament to overturn Supreme Court rulings. He added that other contentious parts would be changed but not scrapped. The change in Netanyahu's stance comes after months of protests against the proposed judicial overhaul. Protests in Israel against Netanyahu's government have been ongoing since March. The Supreme Court of the US has struck down affirmative action in college admissions. US President Joe Biden has expressed his disappointment over the decision. Biden criticized the Supreme Court panel. He said, "This is not a normal court." Under the affirmative action policy, seats were reserved for different racial groups during admission processes in American universities. The US media has reported that the number of homeless people in New York City has reached an all-time high. It's estimated that there are now over 100,000 homeless people living in the Big Apple. Among them at least 50,000 migrants. New York officials have spent over $1 billion to house the migrants. This is because asylum seekers started arriving in large numbers as the US eased COVID restrictions in 2022. The International Atomic Energy Agency's director, Rafael Grossi, will visit Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant next week. The visit comes as Japan plans to release waters from the Fukushima plant into the ocean. China, South Korea and Taiwan have raised concerns about the water release. Japan claims the water is treated, but it still has small traces of the radioactive material tritium. Remember, Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant was damaged by an earthquake followed by a tsunami in 2011. A prolonged heat wave is scorching the US's southern states of Texas and Arizona. Temperatures have crossed 38 degrees Celsius. Texas and Arizona are struggling to meet high electricity demands due to the heat. At least 62 million Americans are at risk of having no electricity. At least 112 people have lost their lives to extreme heat in Mexico. Temperatures in Mexico's northern regions crossed 45 degrees Celsius. The heat wave has been ongoing for 10 days. Mixed with humidity, the heat is causing dehydration and heat stroke. The UK is also scorching from a heat wave. Temperatures have reached 40 degrees Celsius. The UK's weather service has issued a warning advising people to stay indoors. Several parts of the UK are witnessing water shortage as rivers are drying up from the heat. New Zealand has become the first country to ban single-use thin plastic bags from its supermarkets. These bags were usually used by customers to collect their fruits and vegetables. The plastic ban will also be extended to straws and cutlery. Customers have already begun using paper and cloth bags. Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg condemned the environmental impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. This was during her visit to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Thunberg met Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky on Thursday. She called the Kakhovka Dam breach an act of environmental genocide or ecocide. Remember, the Kakhovka Dam was breached on the 6th of June. Russia and Ukraine blame each other for the dam's destruction. Scientists are saying that countries need to work together to combat rising global temperatures. They added that nations were too busy negotiating finances rather than focusing on proactiveness towards climate change. The report said that the current rate of inaction, it would be nearly impossible to keep global temperatures from rising by 1.5 degrees Celsius. India's Housing Development Finance Corporation and HDFC Bank are expected to complete their merger this week. The merged entity will be valued at $172 billion. This will create the fourth largest lender globally in terms of market capitalization. The company will rank just behind the Bank of America. Reports say the US antitrust regulator is gearing up for a massive lawsuit against Amazon. The Federal Trade Commission will reportedly sue the e-commerce giant for systematically disadvantaging some of its merchants. These are merchants who don't use certain optional services like Fulfilled by Amazon. If proven, the FTC can ask for the company to be broken up or restructured. The makers of the game Pokemon Go, Niantic, is closing its Los Angeles game studio. It'll also cancel 2 of its upcoming games. Niantic has said it'll cut 230 jobs as part of the move. This will affect about 25% of the company's staff. Last year, the company cancelled 4 projects and cut 8% of its staff. Volkswagen is in talks with Tesla to adopt its charging standard. The announcement follows a slew of automakers and charging equipment makers choosing Tesla's charging design. This is over concerns that companies may lose out on customers if they don't make the switch soon. Ford and General Motors are already among car makers that have signed up for Tesla's chargers. Meanwhile, Polestar has also signed an agreement with Tesla for access to its superchargers. This is for its vehicles in the US and Canada. Earlier this week, Volvo became the first European car maker to adopt Tesla's charging standard. Reports say Chinese online fashion retailer Shein has filed for an initial public offering in the US. Its stock market debut could come before the end of this year. This is despite Shein facing scrutiny from the US government over its labor practices. It's been accused of sourcing its material from China's Xinjiang region, where products are often the result of forced labor by the Uyghur population. Online retailer Overstock.com will rebrand itself as Bed Bath & Beyond. This is after it finalized a deal to purchase the bankrupt retailer's intellectual property assets. Overstock CEO said that the new name will help the company attract Bed Bath & Beyond's customer base. British billionaire Richard Branson's company Virgin Galactic has finally launched its first commercial rocket plane. 2 Italian Air Force officers and an aerospace engineer made the brief suborbital ride with 3 crew members. The flight marked a long-delayed breakthrough for the company since its launch in 2004. Apple and the European Union antitrust regulators are having a closed-door hearing today. This is over a potential fine or an order against its app restrictions. Apple takes a cut of some subscriptions sold on its App Store. App developers have argued that this is unfair. The EU probe was sparked 3 years ago by music streaming service Spotify. Google will block Canadian news on its platform in the country. The tech giant joins Facebook in escalating the campaign against Ottawa's Online News Act. Under the Act, companies need to compensate news publishers for using their content. The legislation was proposed after complaints from Canada's media industry. Moving on to sports. In Kabaddi, India has claimed the Asian Championships 2023. The match is played in South Korea's Busan. India beat Iran 42-32 to clinch the title for the 8th time. Captain Pawan Sehrawat led the Indian side from the front and scored 10 points. The Indian Kabaddi team is now preparing for the upcoming Asian Games in China, which start from the 23rd of September. In boxing, Indian sporting legend Mary Kom has been honoured with the Global Indian Icon of the Year award. This was part of the annual UK India Awards. The 40-year-old is India's first ever Olympic medalist in women's boxing. She received the award from the Indian High Commissioner to the UK. Indian player Sumit has advanced to the semi-final of the Eldora Cup. This year's edition of the Elorda Cup, is being played in Kazakhstan. Sumit defeated his Kazakh opponent in the 86 kg category at the quarter-final. The Indian showcased his power and precision to win 5-0. He will now face Tokyo Olympics bronze medalist Saken Baibosinov in the semi-final on June 29th. Moving to cricket, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, or BCCI, has decided to rethink the policies on retired players' participation in foreign T20 leagues. The current rule stands that any player's participation in overseas leagues will only be possible when they retire from all formats of cricket in India, which includes the IPL. However, with the emergence of more foreign leagues, many players opt for early retirement. The BCCI is aiming to adopt stricter measures now. Players may have to adhere to a cooling-off period after retirement before they can join any foreign league. In football, Mexico defeated Haiti 3-1 at the CONCACAF Gold Cup. The match was played in the American town of Glendale on Thursday. With this win, Mexico has now reached the knockout stage of the tournament. Mexico is leading Group B of the Gold Cup with 6 points to their credit, while Haiti is placed second at the table with 3 points. The Indian side will face Lebanon in the South Asian Football Federation semi-final on Saturday. The match will be played in the Indian city of Bengaluru. India eyes the tournament again after having won it last year, while Lebanon is also trying to reach the finals of the competition for the first time. England midfielder Mason Mount is set to join Manchester United in a $76 million deal. Mount will make the move from Chelsea and sign a 5-year contract with United. This is Manchester United's first signing of the transfer season. Mount had a deteriorating relationship with the Chelsea hierarchy for the past 12 months. He hopes to join United to rediscover his form after a difficult year. In tennis, Polish player Kamil Majchrzak has been banned over doping for 13 months. The International Tennis Integrity Agency, or ITIA, announced the ban on Thursday. Majchrzak had climbed to the 75th position in the world in February last year. He also tested positive for several banned substances in 2022. However, he denied having knowingly taken any banned substance. Former world number 1 in women's tennis, Caroline Wozniak is set to make a comeback. She had earlier announced her retirement prior to the 2020 Australian Open at the age of 29. She cited that she wanted to start a family with her husband, the former NBA player David Lee. Wozniacki is scheduled to play at the Canadian Open in Montreal in August. Coco Gauff defeated third-seeded Jessica Pegula to reach the semi-finals of the Eastbourne International. The 19-year-old beat Pegula 6-3, 6-3 in the All-American tennis match. World number 5 Gauff is now the highest-ranked player remaining in the tournament. Gauff will next play Madison Keys in the semis. This will be her third semi-final appearance of the year after Auckland and Dubai. Moving on to entertainment now, supermodel Naomi Campbell has become a mother for the second time at the age of 53. Campbell shared the news on her Instagram and wrote that it's never too late to become a mother. She also showed us a glimpse of her newborn baby boy. Campbell has a 2-year-old daughter who was born when she was 50. Country music singer Dolly Parton has shared details of her debut rock album titled Rockstar. The 77-year-old was inspired to venture into rock music after her induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year. Parton has collaborated with singers Elton John and Sting and former Beatles members Ringo Starr and Sir Paul McCartney for the album. Rockstar will release on the 17th of November. The 57th edition of the Karlovy Vary Film Festival kicks off today in the Czech Republic. In addition to film screenings and awards, the festival will provide a launchpad to emerging talent. The segment helps new filmmakers with international collaboration and networking opportunities. This year's festival will be attended by actors like Russell Crowe and Alicia Vikander. The International Cinematographers Guild has created a hardship fund for members affected by the Writers Guild of America's strike. It's called the Work Slowdown Hardship Fund. The fund allocates $250,000 to eligible members. Money would also be directed to SAG-AFTRA members. The actors with SAG-AFTRA may go on strike against the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers over new contract negotiations. Striking WGA members have found a creative outlet in stand-up comedy. As the strike nears its third month, comedy and late-night show writers are booking venues across the US. While some are doing it to stay busy, others are trying to make ends meet. The Recording Academy has shared the schedule for the 2024 Grammy Awards. The first round of voting will take place between the 11th and 20th of October. Final voting closes on the 4th of January next year. The 66th Annual Grammy Awards will take place in Los Angeles on the 4th of February. Pop star Madonna is recovering at home after a health scare led to her hospitalization. Her celebrity friends have since sent their get well soon messages. The Weeknd wrote that he's sending his prayers. Meanwhile, Madonna's longtime friend Debbie Mazar shared an old photo of the two. Mazar wrote that Madonna is on the mend. BTS singer Jungkook has announced his new solo single. The song is titled 7. Jungkook will kick off several solo activities to promote the song. 7 is available for pre-order on music streaming platforms. It'll release along with his debut solo album on the 14th of July. The fourth In America Independence Day event by CNN has announced a star-studded lineup. Singers Shania Twain, Demi Lovato, rapper Post Malone, and rock band The Plain White T's will perform at the event. The United States Air Force Band will also deliver an ensemble performance. The broadcast will be accompanied by fireworks shows across the US. The iHeartRadio Music Festival has announced its lineup of performers. Singer Kelly Clarkson, rapper Lil Wayne, and rock band Foo Fighters are set to perform at the event. It will also be the first time that the festival will be broadcast live on a streaming platform. The two-day event will take place on the 22nd and 23rd of September in Las Vegas.